On the 12th day of podcast, Todd prepared to wear 12 leather jackets, 11 heavy hoodies, 10 lighter sweaters, 9 festive polos, 8 cozy zip-ups, 7 fancy vests, 6 fancier vests, 5 graphic tees, 4 pairs of jorts, 3 cargos, 2 fuzzy socks, and 2 Santa hats to cover each nip. And 2 Santa hats to cover each nip.
Thank you for tuning into Romancing the Podcast. You had us at hello. I'm Paige Wesley.
I'm Mikey Randolph.
And I'm Todd Schlosser. And joining us today is...
Rachel Scanlon.
Yay!
Here I am.
Hey. Todd introduced her like she was Todd's friend, but she's Paige's friend. So Paige introduced her.
I would like to say that I think we've become fast friends, Mikey. Rude. But yes, Paige brought you on the podcast.
Rachel's a hilarious comic. One of my favorite people on earth. Was at my wedding.
Oh,
Hell yeah.
Nice. So you got an invite. I was wondering who got those.
Oh, yeah. I slid in there. We had a great time. Your wedding was my favorite wedding.
It's pretty solid. It's because my family's great, unlike the family in this movie. And yeah, we had a lot of requests in the Facebook group and on social media to do this movie because it came out this year.
The movie being Happiest season.
Yes, I assume because you clicked on the link.
Right.
Unfortunately, the three of us are painfully straight, and so we didn't feel fully qualified to discuss this movie at length. So, Rachel, thank you for agreeing to be our expert.
Of course, I am painfully gay, and I am very glad to be here. I love to be your gay person, and this movie is really I podcasted about this episode for Two Dykes and a Mic, and I realized that I've only talked about this movie with lesbians or queer women.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I am very interested to hear what
straight people thought of this movie.
Well, you're about to for about 2 hours. So let's talk first impressions then. So I just saw it for the first time today. Mikey, I think you had the same experience.
Nope, I've seen it before.
Oh, you saw it before. When did you first see it, Mikey?
Yeah, I'll tell my little story. So my brother came out last May.
Yeah.
My mom was super excited to be like, I'm so excited to watch a gay Christmas movie with your brother when he comes in for Thanksgiving. And so we all sat down as a family and watched it. It was actually a really sweet moment, I think, because he didn't get to spend a lot of time with us last Christmas because of work. But it was really nice to sit down and watch a movie like that. You know, content aside of the movie, it was nice. It was really sweet to see my mom like really get into it and try to make him feel included. And I really, it was a good moment for our family.
How old is your brother now?
He is 30.
Wow. And he came out as a gay man.
Yes.
That's incredible. That's pretty late for...
I kind of pretty much knew, but like he had not come out to our family.
Wow. Incredible.
I think for me, it made me cry a lot because I really didn't like the way that they treated Kristen Stewart's character through the whole movie, and it was making me sad. I'm kind of torn because I did have a good time watching this movie, and I do think it's well acted. It's not badly written. It's purely a content issue for me, but I was a little frustrated that like there was a lot of fanfare about this movie being the first lesbian like Hallmark Christmas movie, quote unquote, as far as representation goes, but they spend most of this movie forcing them to pretend to be straight. And I was like, can we just get a gay movie of gay people being gay the way that they are normally? And then that got me thinking more about like, why are all of our LGBTQ stories centered around coming out? Where like that's a super important part of every person's life, but at the same time, that's not the only important thing about these people's lives. And I feel like we need more stories that are not that are just people who have come out and are just living their lives because they have love stories too. And so I was a little torn where I was like, I'm glad that this opens the door for more things. And I don't think it's a poorly made movie. There are parts of it that I really enjoyed, but the content bugged me a bit. I don't know. The kind of short-sightedness of it, I guess, kind of bugged me a bit.
So, Rachel, this is why I'm glad you're on. Because here was my question watching this. Because I'm watching this, I'm like, okay, so Kristen Stewart's character is obviously getting treated just terrible. And this relationship is just terrible. And they're making so bad decisions. And I was like, so it's kind of like a straight rom-com where like a male or female will do like absolutely terrible things to the other person. Yeah, and then they'll end up together at the end. And I was like, is that what it's supposed to be like? Is that like a statement on rom-coms? Or like, I don't know how to take this anymore.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about most lesbian movies is that they are almost always either a Bond dram, which is like a period piece where somebody drops a glove and they're like speaking Old English and they're like, lighting candles and banging pretty quietly.
Yeah.
Or they are these like trauma drams, which is a trauma drama where it is very dramatic that they're in love with their professor, they're in love with somebody who's married, they have a freakishly large age gap, and then the story is this like very dramatic romance, and then somebody comes out and then somebody usually dies. So what's weird about this movie is that they almost did neither. Yeah. Because we started the movie and they're already at the point in their relationship where one of them wants to propose to the other one.
Yeah.
So we don't get to watch them fall in love, which is one of the best parts of a rom-com is this like fumbly love story with these like little bits of comedy. So we already start at that. So then we're like, okay, if we're not going to see the romance, then let's see the comedy of errors, right? We have somebody who meets somebody's wacky family, and this has been done in straight movies for years, and it's a very fun, very simple concept. But then we didn't get to see that because then it turned into about being closeted, and that is actually like a pretty heavy subject to be done in this context when we're being told the whole time, all of the hype of the movie is, you guys better buckle up because it is the first lesbian, lighthearted rom-com Christmas movie. And to be delivered something that was like pretty painful to watch, right? We're seeing Kristen Stewart gets treated like unforgivably.
It is meet the parents level torture in this movie for her for no good reason, because like literally this is just the most unwelcoming family on earth.
Fucking crazy.
Bonkers the way they treat her. And that's not even including the fact that she is having to pretend to be straight for a week. Like, on top of that, they're torturing her.
Which I almost was, as like a comedian, I'm thinking to myself, if the comedy is that we have somebody who is so obviously gay, who looks gay, talks gay, sounds gay, couldn't possibly pass as straight, and then that person has to pass as like straight, I'm like, okay, that could be comedic, like that's funny, right? We've seen it. That could be like the audience is in on the joke that this character is just so flamboyantly gay.
I mean, Dan Levy does that later in the movie. Like that's in this movie. It could have been the whole thing.
Right. I would have loved that.
Me too.
But they didn't. It was basically like watching Kristen Stewart try to like half be straight with like her hair pinned back. Like I was like, I'm not sure she's still wearing a blazer.
Yeah, I was about to say, she's got too many blazers to even pull it off. Like it's
I know, it was very strange. The amount of blazers was, her hair was like very greasy, but I'm like, is that the joke? I don't know. And like, if we want to watch her fumble through being a straight person, we could all watch Twilight again, which
we did a couple weeks ago too.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love it. I just watched Eclipse today with my girlfriend.
Oh man. I see they haven't seen any of the other ones. I cannot wait to show them New Moon. New Moon is fucking hilarious.
Bonkers.
So, not to repurpose us back away from Twilight into this movie.
I feel like there was a draft of the script where it was like, a lesbian couple comes home to meet this like ridiculously goofy family, because they all have like really over the top elements.
Yeah.
But then they're like, let's rewrite it to be like emotional abuse with a goofy family in the background.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that there's a lot going on, but it pulls focus from the biggest villain of all of this movie, which is by far Harper. I mean, we have an emotionally abusive psychopath who has like traumatized Aubrey Plaza.
Yeah, how dare she?
That I think is the hardest thing to get over, is that we have this like bombshell Mackenzie Davis, right?
Yeah, Mackenzie Davis,
who is, by the way, a heterosexual.
Yeah.
So she
I think Aubrey Plaza
is bi, and she's been openly bi before the movie. Mackenzie Davis like jumped onto the lesbian scene in San Junipero, which was that Black Mirror episode where she plays this like beautiful lesbian couple. It's amazing stuff. And then she sticks around and does Terminator, which is like the most queer energy like lead female that we can have in action movies. And then she follows it up with the first lesbian, Christmas movie, and I'm looking it up and I'm like, wait a second, she's straight. And then she's this villain. I mean, it's unforgivable. The way she acts is like bananas.
You call her the villain. I agree, but I don't think the movie thinks she is the villain.
That's my biggest problem with it, is because the movie, I feel like the movie thinks they absolve her at the end, and I'm like, no.
No, just because you reveal yourself to be a stalker who is tracking your ex-girlfriend, that does not make you a hero in this movie.
No.
Paige, to sort of dovetail off of a point you made, if this is the first foray into a lesbian romantic comedy, it's a decent one. I do think we'll get a lot better ones because this opened the door to it. And that's great. I think they could have done a better job with it.
With my family, this was a double feature with the Hallmark movie that also featured a gay couple. This was the much better film.
Yeah.
Well, I think all of you were ignoring the one that came out last Christmas as part of Dolly Parton's series of Hallmark films.
Yeah.
She does everything
have
better.
you seen that one?
Yes, we reviewed it.
Yes. Okay. Where it's a super Republican family and the son is dating the mom's personal assistant and
I didn't see that one.
makes everyone happy and solves all the problems by, I think, getting shot and then inviting Dolly Parton to the wedding. It's a,
Oh, I did see that one.
we should do that one. We should do that one at some point.
We should do that one. Is so bonkers.
I think the thing that this movie has going for it, the one thing, is that I feel like it's not just a Hallmark movie. People took this movie seriously. You could have seen this in a theater and it wouldn't have felt out of place.
No, it's way better than Hallmark.
Yeah. And I think, if this wasn't pandemic central, maybe we would have seen this in a theater.
Yeah.
My frustration is just that they're so mean to Kristen Stewart this whole movie. It bothered me the whole time, where multiple points when Dan Levy's like, run, get your stuff. I'm like, get your stuff, let's go.
Okay, I don't want to be an apologist, but if I thought that my brother brought home someone who got arrested for shoplifting, I probably wouldn't be nice to them.
I mean,
Oh,
sure. I do like that the kids come clean later.
yeah.
But I hated her mom insinuating that she stole her brooch. I was like,
For me, there were one too many things that they
piled on.
I think when we have it, if this movie had these super funny jokes in it and made me really laugh, I would probably let go of the ending, which was unacceptable.
Yeah.
And the lack of any real Black representation in this movie. And the lead being a straight actress in 2020. It's I would have possibly been you know what? Fuck it. I laughed. So who cares? But because instead, after I watched this movie, I was like, oh, I feel bad.
Yeah.
I feel bad. And I do feel like a lot of lesbians know exactly what it feels like to fall in love with their best friend in high school and to be found out and have your best friend say, nope, she's a pervert. That is actually
she throws her under the bus.
Bad.
Yeah.
She does it bad. And that is such actual traumatizing experience for so many lesbian women that in the end, for her to still be picked as you're my partner and no one really grows, she does it again when she's outed by her sister at the climax of the movie. For Kristen Stewart to still pick Harper over Riley, for a lot of lesbians,
I was
feels
shipping
like a
Riley
betrayal.
so hard. I wanted her and Riley to end up together because I was like, clearly they get along. There's a commonality. She feels more comfortable with her. And Riley figures it out early on and tactfully handles it. And they really set it up as if she's gonna end up with Riley, and then it just doesn't happen.
I honestly think if they would have made it so that she picks Riley, I think I would have come around to this movie. And I think I would have been for it. Because that also is that's the most true to form as well, by the way. If Kristen Stewart picked Riley and then they all stayed friends and they've all had fucked each other, that's a fucking queer love story right there.
that is from my experience of all of my queer friends. They've all fucked each other pretty much. Yeah.
100%. But yeah, it felt like it was gross to feel like she still gets the girl. It's ooh.
After being such a shitty person, you mean?
Yeah, it is. It's really it's unforgivable, the things that she's done. And then still the whole movie we watch her be when she leaves, her girlfriend at the bar.
Oh, yeah.
And she's like, yeah, go, I'll see you at home. It's like, if my girlfriend was like, hey, I'm going to stay here with this guy who's in love with me, and you can go back to like my parents' house without me, and you're in a
where you don't know anyone.
To your separate room?
Yeah, because they think that you are a shoplifter. Yes.
I mean, that's crazy.
We've got to get into this fucking movie, though, because we got to talk about all this scene by scene.
So we open on the credits, which are basically paintings of, I kind of figured it out as the movie goes along. It's supposed to be what led up to the movie. So like those paintings are their love story, which again, as Rachel said, I kind of wish we could have seen. Like, I'd be more invested in this relationship if I knew how they met and if I knew why they're in love and why it's so important and why it's worth fighting for.
We need a Happiest season prequel.
Yeah.
That takes place at Thanksgiving. It could be the Hungriest season. As long as it just goes into their love story, I'm on board for it.
Yeah, it'd be like Star Wars. You'd be like, oh, she turns into Harper like Anakin turns into Darth Vader.
There you go.
Oh man, that scene where she kills the younglings is just a heartbreak.
Oof. This is also something that we've had in the last movie we did, or I guess not the last movie, the one right before it, fake Christmas music. This movie has a ton of it, where they just can't get the rights to actual Christmas music. And so they play things that are like vaguely Christmassy or instrumentals.
I honestly thought at one point we were hearing one of our podcast openings in it.
You guys need to watch more Hallmark movies because all I hear is just like sleigh bells jingling throughout the film. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's Christmassy.
That to say, our podcast opening songs are amazing.
They are amazing,
To my
yes.
sister Erin. But all I'm saying is she could write music for these movies, because the one that's in this movie is just come to Candy Cane Lane with me, with like a weird upbeat under it.
Yeah, it's weird.
But I mean, it makes sense because we open on a neighborhood, which is Candy Cane Lane, and it's a Christmas light house tour, a walking tour too, which I was like,
That was bizarre.
Yeah, does that happen?
I've never done that. I've always done it in cars.
Welcome to your 12-mile Christmas lights house tour
Right?
on foot.
Led by Michelle Buteau,
Yeah.
too. I was like, she gets one line in this movie. What is that about?
You would also think that if you were on a walking tour of Christmas lights, they would be a lot better than just half-ass like Christmas lights on random houses on this
They were
street.
just normal lights.
It
Yeah.
was like the only street in the world that does Christmas light. Like that's the world we live in.
Well, this is what we get for going to
Yeah.
a Craigslist Christmas lights tour.
I will say one of the few really like set up punch jokes in this movie that actually works is when Abby, Kristen Stewart's character, is like, yeah, I'm just not a huge Christmas person. And Harper's like, how can you not like this? How can you not like Christmas? And Michelle Buteau's like, one line is basically, Christmas trees are responsible for 4 deaths, 15 injuries, and a loss of about $12 million a year from house fires. And I was like, perfectly timed. But this is where we establish that Abby's going to stay home for Christmas
Yeah.
and Harper's going to go see her family.
Which I would argue, if they were honest with each other, and Mackenzie Davis was just like, hey, I'm not ready to tell my family the whole mayoral race or whatever. I don't think those are great reasons, but they're her reasons and it's her story. She can choose that. If she was honest with Kristen Stewart about it and Kristen Stewart had stayed home, I don't think that their relationship would have been super negatively impacted.
Totally agree.
This is my biggest beef with the movie, is that she doesn't tell her until they're almost all the way there.
Yeah.
So like choosing something different is not a really viable option.
She was told in a moving vehicle after they had left their town. That part of the movie, because like they have a line where they try to justify it, right? So
Right.
she says, my
You
family
chose
doesn't
it.
know. And
Yeah.
then Kristen is like, well, why would you ask me to come here? And her
Yeah.
only excuse, because the movie is trying to be like, I get what you're thinking. And she
Right.
was like, I just got so swept up in the Christmas spirit last night. Which I'm like, if that's true, you would have woken up in the morning and been like, actually, my whole family died of something and you can't come over. Like, you wouldn't still follow through with bringing her home.
Or just been honest with her that next morning.
I think I'm going to use I got too swept up in the Christmas spirit as a breakup line.
Oh, gee.
Yes.
I think they try to give us that with this scene right after this. So what happens is they go and kiss on a roof. The people in the house find out. They fall down. They run and they kiss in an alley. And that's where she asks her to come home at Christmas.
When you say the people kiss, what you mean is the reindeer and the dominatrix that we see.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
a Christmas dominatrix in the house where they were on the roof. And we get just a flash of it.
I thought it was hilarious.
Oh,
was
that was
very
my
funny.
favorite part of the movie. it was short. It was too short.
Yeah, I wanted their story. I want a prequel that is just that couple's story. We could call it Hunting Season, and it's all about those two people finding each other.
Yeah, that's the queer love story that America needs.
Hey, and we need to normalize furries. I am on board for this.
I think we've gone too far.
Nope. So after the night of the Christmas dominatrix, the next morning, Abby's making breakfast, and Harper gets up, and Abby is basically like, hey, I know I seemed kind of non-committal, but I'm actually really, really excited. I'm excited to meet your family. I'm excited to do the Christmas thing. It's going to be great. And then Harper kind of tries to backpedal and is just like, well, what about the pets that you're watching? And, maybe you don't have to come. Like, you could just stay home. Instead of just telling her the truth.
Yeah.
Because if she had told her the truth,
exactly,
then that's the right time.
Yeah, that's the right time. Exactly.
You're picking on stuff I didn't even pick up on. So she's like terrible from like minute 2.
Yeah,
She's
from
terrible
Jump Street.
from minute 2.
Yeah.
It's really stressful. I think they could have still had the exact same movie with Kristen Stewart's character knowing. Then it would have been less of this like shitting on our poor lead character and have them be a team. Because you can be closeted and be in a relationship that everyone knows about it. Coming out can be like a process that takes time with your family. And it's like, maybe this time, you're not fully going to like hold my hand and kiss it for my family. Like I think we could have still done the whole movie with Kristen knowing.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
I can't tell you how many of my friends have done this where they just know going into it that somebody's not out. But that's information that you need before you make the decision to go. Because having to be closeted for a week, that's something that somebody has to consider and truly make that decision. And this is sprung on Kristen Stewart when they're already almost there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's really crazy to have her not know it, because there's like different levels of being out in a relationship. Sometimes you have to keep coming out over and over again. You come out 1 year and then your mom's cool with it, and then you come out the next year and you're like, my uncle is still racist, so just keep, if there's ways that it seemed very unbelievable that you would get to the point of that level of this romantic relationship and then still not tell her until you're in the car. I'm like,
they've been together a year.
I mean, at least a year that we know of.
Because not every queer person, it's safe and okay for them to come out. A lot of people come from different religious, cultural backgrounds.
True.
But that being said, you can't, without your partner's consent, force them to be closeted again for a week.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
That needs to be a conversation.
So what you're saying is what Mackenzie Davis does is bad?
Oh boy. Oh boy. A real Grinch move in this Christmas movie.
Well, and we'll get to it when we get to their conversation in the car. But there's also something else that she says in that scene that just rams it home how manipulative and terrible she is.
Yeah.
But we find out that Dan Levy's going to watch the pets if they survive.
He steals every scene he's in this movie, though.
He's amazing.
I mean, I knew he was going to be amazing in this because I've seen Schitt's Creek, but I really feel like he kicked it up a notch in this movie. He's so good.
I do too.
He's so good in this movie. And I think his conversations with Abby are great.
Oh, shit.
Like, those are some of my favorite parts of the movie because I feel like, aside from the very end, he gives her really solid advice pretty much the entire movie. And it's one of those shining moments where I'm like, someone working on this movie understands why this is shitty. And that's why Dan Levy is here, but it still didn't solve the whole movie. But this is also where we find out that he manages authors, which is going to come into play later. They then go to a super fancy store where Abby's picking something up, and it's a ring, and a very nice ring. I like that ring a lot.
Sure. It's a fine, very rectangular cut ring or whatever. Like, whatever. If it's not round, it's nothing.
Oh, bullshit. Bullshit. Mine is rectangular.
Hey, Todd, what kind of ring did you get Natalie?
I got her a house.
That's fair. That's fair.
You know what a house is? It's a fucking rectangle.
Oh, Mikey wins that one. Power of debate. Debate rules. Mikey wins.
Whoever has the biggest laugh wins the debate. Yeah. We actually did have the conversation of, do you want a ring or a house first? We actually had that conversation. So I don't feel bad about it. But I do love Dan Levy's response to seeing the ring. Because it's just, no.
It's the funniest part of the movie to me.
Well, of course it's the funniest part of the movie for you, Mikey, because that's how you would react.
No. When Kristen Stewart, when Abby goes, I'm going to ask her father's permission, and he was like, way to stick it to the patriarchy.
I did really love that. And I love that he's giving her shit about that, like almost the whole movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, but he's like, you're not in the right spot for this kind of commitment.
Here's the thing. I'm going to say I don't think these people should be getting married 100%. But I also fully understand somebody wanting to get married, even if it is a heteronormative, institution.
100%. Yeah.
Because I think there's a part of you that's like, I deserve that. I deserve what other people have. I want to have that happiness. I want to have that legitimacy.
I don't think anyone's thinking gay people shouldn't get married, Paige.
No, I know.
Okay. I was like, I live in Nashville, but Nashville is not like that.
No. I'm just saying, I understand why she would, in a perfect world where Harper's not the devil, I understand somebody wanting to get married, even though the history of marriage as an institution is questionable.
Basically, Paige is saying it's okay to commit to someone if you're in love with them. If that's what
I'm saying.
And Mikey, I know you have trouble with that.
I mean, I don't see the purpose, but whatever.
I do want to take this time to point out that Mikey is single, ladies.
You didn't get to go to my wedding, so you don't know what true love is, and that's not your fault.
You would have seen it at Paige's wedding. It was
I know. This is just cynicism reflected outward.
Anyway, but this is where we hear that her plan was originally to ask on New Year's, but now that she's going home with her for Christmas, she was going to ask on Christmas morning.
Yeah.
So we cut to them driving home, and Harper is clearly nervous. And this is when we find out that she's not out to her parents, and that she previously told Kristen Stewart that she was out.
Because she starts that conversation with, hey, remember that time I told you that I was out to my parents and they were like super loving and accepting? All of that was a lie. I'm a sociopath and you should run.
Lock the doors.
She could have just said that we never talked about it, and I let you assume. But in reality, I'm not out. We even made her a liar again.
Yeah, again. But here's where it's going to get even worse, because they stop the car and they're talking it out. And she's now like, hey, Dad's running for mayor, so Christmas is a big deal. And this is where we get the, why did you invite me? Oh, spur in the moment. And she follows it up with, I wanted to give you a great Christmas, but essentially you have to pretend to be a straight roommate orphan. And this is a chance to like lay groundwork. But then she says, I'm asking a lot of you. You don't have to. And then Kristen Stewart says, yeah, no thanks. She actually says no in the car and is like, I'll go home. And then Harper talks her back into it. Like, that's what drove, because I was like, she has every right to go home and to say no. I don't blame her. I think she should. And here's the thing. I think their relationship could have survived that.
Yeah, me too.
Because, hey, it happens. Not everyone can be out. And sometimes that means that family situations can be difficult. But that's why you have to give somebody the choice as to whether or not they want to be there.
Right.
And the fact that she's like, no, please come be my straight roommate. And then she agrees to go because she's like, I'm doing this because I love you and I want to be there for you. But I would argue that Harper's not there for her.
No.
And that's what really bothers me.
She's never there for her.
Is that like Abby is giving everything and it is not being reciprocated.
Yeah, Harper is a toxic serpent.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, but sociopaths are good about getting their way, and she does.
Yeah.
I have a less serious question.
I can't imagine you would have a less serious question.
So were Kristen Stewart's parents really dead, or was that like a joke?
No, they're dead.
Okay.
They died when she was 19 and it becomes a plot point later, but
Why did you think it was a prank?
Well, okay. Well, no, I didn't think it was a prank. I didn't know the timeline of when she's talking with Dan Levy at the end of like if they were still alive and like she just lied to her parents about Abby's family being dead.
No.
But I didn't know that they died after she came out. It didn't make it super clear, or I wasn't paying enough attention.
That's true. We don't establish till the very end that her parents died after she came out, because it's very possible that her parents could have died before and she would have never had to go through that particular version of coming out, although she would have probably had to come out to other people. So, she's still had to do it.
So I was like, oh, her parent, just go to her parents' house. Because I was like, for a second, I was like, oh, because that was a lie too. Because Harper lies so much, I didn't know what to believe.
That makes sense because she is a serpent. We get to her parents' house where we meet her mom, who started an Instagram feed for her dad's mayor campaign, which my favorite is that she takes every single picture on the iPad. It's the most mom thing
Yes, it is.
on the face of the earth.
Yeah.
Is taking pictures with an iPad. And then she tells Harper, you look beautiful. Did you bring concealer? Which is wild.
This is one of those things I don't understand as a guy. Like, my mom would never say that to me.
You put concealer on like black spots and bruises.
Nope. Wrong again.
I mean, I guess you can, but that sounds like a very domestic. Should we? Mikey, are you okay?
Yeah. I mean, I would say you can use it for that. More often than not, you put concealer under your eyes to make you look less tired.
Or blemishes or anywhere.
I put it on a black eye once. My own black eye. Someone else put it on my own black eye.
I'm just picturing you punching somebody and then just doing their makeup to cover it up.
I just want to practice.
I mean, to be honest, if you have a black eye, you should actually be color correcting instead. So instead of concealer, you would use like orange and then powder and then a layer of concealer and then foundation over that.
That was hot.
Welcome back to Paige's makeup tips.
Really hot.
Paige used to do a lot of zombie makeup, and so Paige has some tricks up her sleeve. So this is where she introduces Abby to her mom, and literally every single person that meets Abby is like, oh, you're an orphan. You're so brave. Oh my God, the orphan friend.
Yeah.
It is so wild. This is also where we meet Jane, the youngest sister, who, by the way, I want a movie of just Jane.
Yeah, she's
I
the
want
best.
Jane's movie.
Mary Holland, who was the co-writer of this movie, plays Jane, and she was the funniest part of this movie.
Yes.
I mean, the only really like steady comedic relief throughout this movie where I'm like, that's really fucking funny. Everything. I mean, she's like a genius. If you've seen her in LA, she performed a lot and she's like always been funny. But I was like, thank God she's having this part of this movie. But I wanted, as like a selfish comedian dyke, for the funniest one to be one of the gay ones. I'm like,
I know. You're like, well, and here, there's no shortage of funny gay people. That's what boggles my mind is I'm like, we've got straight people playing gay people, and then we have gay people playing gay people, but none of them are funny. And funny gay people exist.
and then the gay people pretending to be straight people for the entire movie. So it is very confusing.
Which should, as far as this movie's, like philosophy or casting, make them funnier. No, I'm kidding. But her sister Jane is my favorite part of the movie.
And
Just
a great artist.
A great artist, because I actually like that painting, but my favorite is the clips we hear of her book.
Yeah.
And
Oh my
like as
God,
she's talking to people, and the fact that her family basically treats her like a handyman. And it is
Or an IT expert.
insane.
Yeah. Her dad even says when he's introducing her daughters, like, this one was about to be a partner at her firm until she gave it all up to be a mom. This one's our like awesome smart kid. And this one is the only reason the internet works at home. That's how he introduces his daughters.
I make fun of my dad because anytime he's talking about my sister or I, he has to clarify which one. And my sister and I are very close, but very different people. One time when introducing my sister, they were like, oh, are you the comedian? And he said, no, she's the one who owns a house. And I know that he meant it just because he'd been working on her house and like, so that's what he had talked to that person about. But I just thought it was hysterical that was a way to differentiate because a comedian could never own a house.
Yes, God, it's genius. I feel like that happened. My parents send out Christmas cards where I also have a sister named Erin.
Yes.
And it'll be like, Erin just got her PhD, has been published again, and is teaching physics at university. Rachel runs an open mic at a bar. Sucked.
So you're both doing great, is what you're saying.
Hey, I bought Christmas presents with podcast money this year, so we are doing great.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. It's weird, right? To make money off podcasts?
It's super strange. So Victor Garber is playing her dad. You may have seen him in other such films as the creepy professor in Legally Blonde or the lead in the movie version of Godspell.
Her dad has been in so much other stuff. He was in Alias, and he's in a lot of Hallmark movies.
Glad to hear his career is going great.
He's got a West Wing vibe to me.
Yeah, he looks like he has been written and produced by Aaron Sorkin.
He
Yes.
also was on the show Arrow, and he had fire powers.
I'm confused by what you watch.
Oh man, you're an insane person. But he does a lot of TV. He's not often seen in a lot of movies. And I think he does a pretty good job in this.
Yeah, we get a little bit of an interaction with him where Abby tells him that she liked the speech that he made at the food bank on Thanksgiving. Then they tour Sloane's room, who we haven't met yet, but it's literally just all trophies. And this is where we hear the story from her mom that she gave it all up to raise twins and now they make gift baskets. And the only thing funnier to me than Jane in this movie is the description of the gift baskets. The few times we get it in the film.
The reclaimed wood containers.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. The curated gift experiences in the reclaimed wood vessels, I believe is what she calls it.
I do think it's shitty the way her parents and her family talks about her career. Because she left, like her and her husband, who's about to be her ex-husband, we find out, that's how they make their living. They're doing a good job of whatever the fuck it is they do, but they're making a living at it. Stop giving me shit. Like, if I'm ever able to do podcasting full time, I don't want my mom to treat it like, yeah, he talks into a mic and like, well, I guess people like pay him. It's whatever. It's dumb.
But it is.
We find out that they're featured in Goop, which means like they're the top tier of curated gifting experiences and reclaimed wood vessels. So like they're doing amazing. And the whole thing of like, well, she could have been a lawyer, but instead she had kids. It's like, don't you love your grandkids? And also the life of a lawyer is so stressful. I can fully understand somebody choosing to either take a break or do something different.
Yeah, she found a way to support herself and her family and have a better work-life balance. And all they do is shit on her for it.
Yeah, the entire movie.
She's great. Well, she may not be great, but like her career choice is not her problem. Let's just say that.
Right.
Yeah.
We cut to Harper's room where she has a shrine to Josh Hartnett.
Right.
Which, Rachel, I have to ask you, just because I've known you for a long time, so I know roundabouts when you came out. Who was your fake shrine to?
Usher.
Oh, Usher.
Usher.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I get it.
Big
Chris
time.
Bridges is cute.
He's very cute and he seems like hairless, so I feel like I could overpower him if need be. So he was a good pick.
I saw his story arc on Law & Order SVU. I think you probably could overpower him.
Thank you.
I have faith in you. You've been working out. Look
Yeah.
great.
Thank you.
Do you know why Josh Hartnett was on the wall?
It's because it was her fake crush.
Oh, do you know why they used Josh Hartnett is my question.
No.
So the writer and the director of this movie was in a movie we did for Horror Virgin, The Faculty, with Josh Hartnett.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
I just assumed that Harper and Abby were supposed to be my age.
They probably are.
And Josh Hartnett was huge when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
He was like the heartthrob.
Yeah.
So I assumed that's why it was, but that makes sense.
It is Clea Duvall who did this, right?
Faculty is so good.
I know. But yeah, she was in The Faculty with him.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But we also get a picture of her old high school boyfriend, Connor, who has been in something else as like a douchey white guy. What We Do in the Shadows, the TV show. It took me this long to figure it out. I've been thinking about it all day. I think he's the guy who plays, his name is Jeff, but she either calls him Gregor or Jesk.
Yeah, his name is Jeff Suckler in that show. I just think it's funny that his last name is Suckler in a vampire show.
We never hear his last name. It's always Gregor or Jesk because she can't say Jeff. So that's who her old high school boyfriend is. And this prompts her mom, Harper's mom, to ask Abby, do you have a boyfriend? And this is where I think they tried to play it as like, so gay you can't pass as straight, because people ask her about things. She gives these weird answers where she's just like, oh no, I actually just broke up with a milkman. And then they just like pan away from her. And I'm just like, what? Like, give her something better to say.
But I do feel like when we see Dan Levy at the end and the mom just assumes that that's the ex-boyfriend, I mean, I get it.
Hysterical.
Dan Levy does come across like a milkman.
Honestly, Dan Levy is hot, and if he played for my team, I'd be down. So,
No,
like,
I think, listen, Dan Levy, I think he's hot. I think he's amazing.
Yeah, same.
you could have that,
Yeah.
I think.
Well, no, I mean, I'm sure he's got standards. Just because he's into guys doesn't mean he would slum it with a
Podcaster.
That's true. That's true. There's a reason that this is an audio medium.
The truth of your statement hurts the most, Paige.
So they go to Abby's room where her mom, I think this is the first time Harper's like, oh, Abby's not going to just stay with me. And she's like, no, I mean, I wouldn't make two grown women share a bed. Not when we have extra rooms. Although it's Jane's room, but then they tell Jane to go home. But like, where does Jane live that's not there if she's constantly fixing everything around the house? I have no idea where Jane sleeps.
I got the impression that Jane lived close by, but not
that's
in
what I
this
thought.
house, right? Although I do really want to see like her dry erase board with like the outline of her book on it.
So
because
much.
that was like the most fascinating subplot that we don't get too much of. But she wrote like a Dune level world novel, and I'm on board to learn all about it.
I feel like if we walked in her house, it would just be like red string webs everywhere.
It's like the Charlie
Like,
meme from It's Always Sunny. Like,
yes.
yeah, absolutely.
And she's like, and the Glarks and the Thora beasts.
At the end of the movie, when Dan Levy is like so invested in her telling him the story that he's like, oh, because of the trade restrictions,
Yes,
I lost
yes.
my shit. And I was fully crying because of the end of this movie. And I was laughing laughing in tears. It was like watching a thunderstorm, but it's snowing. It was like two opposite things, but it was hilarious.
I mean, my favorite is they show her talking about her book to multiple people throughout this movie, and all of them are actively trying to get away from her. And then it's just that like that thing of when somebody's just like talking your ear off, like,
Oh, you mean like when I talk about the podcast of people I know in real life?
there you go. I was gonna say, as comics, it's whenever one of our friends who can't write decides to write a pilot and comes and talks to us about it, and we're just like,
Hey, Paige, as someone who's waiting for your notes, this is very hurtful.
I do have one person waiting for notes, but that script was actually really good.
Of course it was. Wangy blangy.
No, it's the best one I've ever gotten, I would say, as far as something that
Wow.
somebody wants me to give notes
You're
on.
laying it on pretty thick there, Paige.
I'm being accurate. So they kind of get settled and rest up for dinner, and Harper's mom knocks and walks in on Abby. And this is where we get the exchange where she's like, I bet you're not used to privacy from the orphanage.
Yeah.
And then Abby's like, I was 19 when my parents died, so there was no orphanage. And then her mom just says, one of the lucky ones. What? Like, you're lucky that your parents died when you were over 18? Like, if anything, that's the least lucky, because now you're like, you have no support system, just like gone.
Well, okay, this is a weird debate to have, but do you think a smaller child would be unluckier to lose their parents?
Let's really jump into the minutia of at what age it's the luckiest to lose your parents, guys.
Well, because if you hit the right age, you become Batman.
True. Here's the other thing. I think it's always a bad time to lose your parents. Don't get me wrong.
There we go. That's the answer we were looking for.
Let's say that you're an infant and your parents die in a car crash. It's pretty likely that you're going to get adopted. And then you'll probably have another family.
yeah, because everyone wants a puppy.
Yeah. And so, again, no good time to lose parents. But if you gotta, go for baby.
Yeah.
Listen, I kind of like, the orphan joke being like done over and over and over again. Like, it was so absurd to me that like that was the type of comedy that I was like, this I get. I'm like on
that made me
board
laugh.
for the absurdity of it.
Yeah.
But then there were certain things that I was like, where like the mom had like a weird comment about like wanting the biracial children in a photo for a photo op. That I'm like, I think they hate their grandchildren.
Yeah, I think they do. That's why they keep pawning them off on everybody.
Right.
They hate them and yet treat them like trophies, which is disgusting.
Sure is.
So they all go to dinner, and her mom has invited Connor, like, who's the ex-boyfriend, just out of the blue, like, oh, you guys should catch up. And then again, whenever they introduce Abby, they go around telling everyone she's an orphan again.
But the funniest part is that she has to use a chair from a different table, and it's so much lower than everybody else.
Yeah.
Nice detail. Very nice detail.
Yeah.
This is also the first time we hear about Jane's book.
And it sounds awesome.
Yeah, it sounds like some sort of crazy fantasy epic.
Yeah. Awesome.
But this is also where we get the story about their house in Jackson Hole when Harper got chicken pox. And it turns out that it's really a story about her and Connor.
Yeah.
But Abby had never heard about Connor at all. So they go to the ladies' room and they kind of talk it out. They get some chance to be alone, which is nice. And as they're coming out of the ladies' room, they run into Riley, who we find out is Harper's ex, played by Aubrey Plaza.
Yeah.
I don't know where the other 6 evil exes are, but this one is here. Sorry, Aubrey Plaza was also in Scott Pilgrim.
I got it. I got the joke.
Thank you, one person. I will make you watch it, Todd.
You guys talk about that movie so much.
Because it's great. And I like
Paige is
it a lot.
overhyping it. We need to level off
That's
the
true.
hype.
That's
Yeah.
true. We need to not talk about it for a while.
It's like, all right.
I liked it.
Great. So we go back to the table where we find out that Riley's family is sitting like one table away.
Yeah.
Harper's parents are talking about her family and basically like, oh, Riley's like a really, accomplished doctor and it's a good thing because that lifestyle choice. Basically implying that like the only reason she's worthy of love as their daughter because she's a lesbian is the fact that she's been an accomplished doctor, which just gives you an indication of how this family views love. And it's not loving people because they're a person and they're your family and you love them. It is transactional, which is really messed up.
It is freaky. But we do get to, this is when we're introduced to Riley. And I really like that right away Riley can tell. She immediately knows exactly what's happening, which is just comforting that like we have another person that knows what's going on in this movie.
Yeah. And she literally clocks them right out of the gate.
Yeah.
And doesn't do anything about it. She just kind of registers the information.
She was so cool as a cucumber when she like runs into her on the balcony and she's just kind of like, hey, bitch, I'm fucking hot and I've been in the same boat, bitch. Like they kind of have this like Eskimo sister, like I see you situation. Mm-hmm. And I liked it a lot.
Yeah. No, I liked it a lot too.
She's very smooth.
Yeah. Here's the thing, and I think the thing that I like most is she has all the information to ruin everyone's life immediately within the context of this movie. She knows about what happened in high school. She knows about what happened now. She knows that Connor was a fake. She knows about Abby, and she doesn't do anything with it. And she doesn't threaten to do anything with it. She's just there. She's just like, I know you need to kind of live your life out. I have no ill intent. And I think that really helps us later when we find out what happened to her in high school, because she has, I would say, none of us would feel bad if she wanted revenge because we would feel like it was justified. It really solidifies her as a truly good character and somebody that Abby should spend time with and that maybe is a better choice, because she doesn't take that opportunity. She understands that this has to be Harper's journey. And while she doesn't want to be involved, she's going to let it play out.
Riley is so clearly the only character in this movie who first of all, hero. She's the absolute hero of the movie.
True.
The second of all, we know from what happened and how she's acting now, she is the only character who has learned and grown at all.
Yes.
And she has
absolutely,
through like what has happened, has evolved into this like well-adjusted, empathetic, proud, like queer person and who's like been through it and is now here a well-adjusted adult. And that is the only one that we get. And for her still just be like alone. I'm like, what's going on here?
It's okay for well-adjusted adults to be alone.
This is true.
But also, Mikey, you are not amongst that group.
Yeah.
I'm adjusted.
I feel like with the exception of Harper making Abby go back in the closet, like in Abby's hometown, if Abby had her druthers, she is an out and proud, actualized, mature adult. And I feel like that's why she and Riley end up getting along so well, is because they are operating from a place of understanding and maturity. and security in who they are that Harper just doesn't have. And that's why they're a better match and they should be together. Just saying.
Here's why Riley is a superhero to me. She was not afforded the opportunity of when she got to choose that she was going to come out.
Right.
She was forced that by Mackenzie Davis's character, her freshman year of high school.
Yeah.
And for that, all she wants to make right on that situation is a handshake and they can bury the hatchet. That is an insane level of compassion that I don't think most people have within them. So she is by far the person I wished that Kristen Stewart ended up with in this movie.
Yeah. I mean, the lesbian community has gone full Team Riley. I mean, making t-shirts start. I mean, it has really caught on all over TikTok, and we have really taken Riley under our wing as like our hero of the season.
Awesome.
But it is very fascinating that Harper is either shoving people out of the closet too early or shoving people in the closet way too late. It is such a strange trait that she has throughout her whole life.
Yeah. So we cut back to, or I mean, at dinner, she gets to talk to the parents a little bit. So she is good with their parents, but they still think she's the straight roommate. So it's a false relationship, I guess. We cut back to Harper's mom knocks on the door of Abby's room and then just comes in, like doesn't like knock, knock, open, like doesn't allow her to say yes or no, to say goodnight. And then Harper comes down to say goodnight to her. And her mom just kind of stands there waiting to like watch it happen.
Yeah.
And then she literally has to be like, Mom, leave. And she's like, oh, girl talk. Okay, but when you finish, I want to give you an early Christmas present. And Harper comes in and is like, so tonight wasn't the best, but you are really good with my parents. I think they really like you. And she's like, as much as they like Connor, that guy that they just like invited out of nowhere. And she says, well, they don't even like me that much, so no worries. So she leaves and goes to bed. Abby calls John, who's Dan Levy, and we find out in this scene that he has not been feeding the fish, which will come into play later.
He forgot about the fish.
Yeah. But she also gives him kind of this rundown of what's going on, of basically Harper's not out. Her parents don't know we're together. I'm her straight roommate. And he says, have they ever met a lesbian? Which agreed. Like if I met Kristen Stewart, I'd be like, boyfriend? Okay. And she justifies this by saying it's not ideal, but it's what she needs right now, which is her justifying it to herself of like, I am a supportive girlfriend. I am helping this person that I am in a relationship with. It's just not reciprocated, which is so frustrating.
Yeah, but she is being a good person here. She's being taken advantage of, really.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make her a bad person. I think she is, throughout the whole film, a great person.
Yeah, I would agree. She wakes up to the twins standing over her the next morning. This is the first time we meet the twins. And she basically tells them that I'm Harper's friend. And they're like, this is our room. And then we meet Allison Brie, who is Sloane, the other sister, who basically drags everybody out of bed into the kitchen because they have been making Christmas cookies since 5:45 a.m.
That's my bitch right there.
That's what I'm going to do tomorrow. It's going to be so great. I'm super excited. I'm going to have to find people to give cookies to.
Paige, I am right here. Give me
they
cookies.
Won't get to you
When she's like making those cookies at like 5 a.m. and then Harper, her sister, just rolls in and just starts eating one of them like while they're still cooling. I was like out of my mind. I'm like, she just fucking made, like, obviously they're made in dozens.
Yeah, they're doing royal icing too.
No, I can't live like that.
But Mackenzie Davis is a sociopath. Like that felt very true to her character to me.
Yeah, just showing up and ruining shit and
taking what she wants, giving nothing back. Yeah.
Yeah, it is par for the course.
Generally
Look,
being
I can't
the
help
worst.
It. If I smell fresh baked cookies, I'm going for it. I'm sorry.
It's autopilot. It's almost like sleepwalking.
I would have asked first because I'm not a monster like what's her face, Harper.
Harper, yeah.
We cut to her dad comes in and basically gives everyone hugs and then asks if they've read Harper's article. At which point in this, I just have in my notes, everyone in this family is mildly nuts, where it's just like everyone is their own level of crazy. They kind of are pretty dismissive of Abby, where it's just like hug, hug, hug. Hi, Abby. Bye. Which again, because they're like, oh, she's just a friend, or whatever. So they kind of cast her off a little bit. I couldn't imagine how painful that would be if you were Abby and you're like, this is technically about to be my family.
That's what's like, it's so scary. The like tiny, very like spot on detailed parts of this movie that hit you right in the nuts of your heart. The like the little things that are like the chair being too small and no one fucking did anything. He hugged every single person in that room and except for her. The mom being like, if my earrings just found their way back, like these tiny little microaggressions that we've all felt like, I know I'm the asshole here, but you're going to make sure that I know that in a way that's like freakishly like mind game. Like they do that part. Like that's what is, it's so hard when the things that ring the most true in this movie, the things that we can all fucking be like, I felt that, I know that. Or like even the best performance of this movie, which is Aubrey Plaza saying in the bar what happened. All of those things are the things that like hurt me. The most true parts of the movie are the parts that are painful. And that is like hard when I'm like, I was here to just like laugh and have like a goofy gay movie. And now I'm like, ouch, my feelings are hurt.
Yeah. I'm going to have to watch The Birdcage to recover from this.
Oh, I love The Birdcage so
much. Or
Shrek,
honestly.
Or Shrek, yes.
Yeah.
So we cut to ice skating where, well, we find out that there's a huge event that night and the donor for his mayoral campaign is going to be there. And they're going to try and get their family photo. Then we cut to ice skating. This is also the first time we hear Sloane describe what they do because Abby asks her like, oh, I hear you guys make gift baskets. And this is where she says it's a curated gift experience inside reclaimed wood vessels. Gwyneth Paltrow put them in goop.
Yeah, so they're successful. She's running a successful small business. Her husband is leaving her. Yeah, she's a bit on edge and sort of a bitch, but she's going through a lot, Paige.
I know. But do you know who else also going through a lot is Abby, who doesn't skate. So she's got like the little reindeer to like push her through.
She really needs a win.
Yeah, she really does.
But this is the first time that we really see the rivalry between Harper and Sloane.
Oh,
where they're like vying for top spot and Jane isn't even considered or involved.
I honestly feel like that's because Jane's not a sociopath.
Well, yeah, thank goodness, because we get crazy reactions from Jane and we get to spend more time with Jane, who is my favorite.
She's the best.
But they're like racing around like a family ice rink and like mowing down families and stuff and actively fighting on the ice. We cut to later that night where they're trying to take the fancy Christmas photo and Abby takes it for them and does a thing that I hate because I'm not a selfie person, so I'm bad at it, where somebody has you take like 5 pictures of something and then they're like, bad, no, and they're all fine, but they're just like, no, my arm fat.
Well, if she would have held the iPad higher and angled it downward, I think she would have been fine.
You got to hit their cheekbones, right? You don't want to hit them from underneath. And speaking as someone whose girlfriend has like quite a large Instagram following, I take a lot of pictures of my girlfriend for her. I felt very seen in this scene.
And at least half of them, she's aware he's taking the pictures.
So they don't get the picture that night. They go to the event where we learn that her parents' names are Ted and Tipper.
Yeah.
I think Tipper is supposed to be like
Tipper Gore. Yep.
And that the twins' names are Matilda and Magnus.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
There's a lot to unpack there, and we frankly don't have the time.
True. They also kind of split off into groups where her dad takes Harper with him to kind of be like the fancy daughter.
Yeah.
And he just kind of leaves Sloane in the dust. And Sloane is clearly super upset about it. Also, Jane is just single and ready to mingle.
Dude, I love Jane in this scene because when Kristen Stewart's at the bar and that guy comes up to like talk to her and she's like, I'm not here to meet anybody. Jane slides in. I don't even think you see her take a step. It's just like a skirt. I'm here to meet people.
I'm here to meet people.
I love Jane so much.
Look, I have a crush on Jane. I'm not gonna lie to y'all.
Yeah, she can get it. She's awesome.
If a girl painted me a picture of a downtown with Christmas lights, I would be like on board.
Yeah, for about 3 or 4 weeks.
100%. If we could just have a Jane movie and a Dan Levy movie.
Yes.
The two of them together on a book tour.
Yes.
That's the next movie.
Yes.
Done.
Listen, I'm pitching a sequel to this called Printing Season, and it's about after the release of her book, and it's Dan leaving her on book tour. I think it's great. Get at me, Dan. We'll write it together.
I love that.
Perfect. I love it. We also find out that Riley is there because she's at all the family events, basically.
Yeah.
And we learned that the donor, like the big donor for the campaign, is Anna Gasteyer.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, you've got funny people in this movie and you're not letting them be funny. Like, Michelle Buteau gets one joke, Anna Gasteyer gets none. Like, what is happening? You cast so many comedians and then none of them get to do anything, which is wild. But this is also where Sloane and Abby get to talk, and Sloane starts asking some pointed questions about their living situation. And Abby tells her that they converted a pantry into an extra bedroom.
You know those big pantries that they have in Pittsburgh?
We also find out that Anna Gasteyer basically is vetting the family.
Yeah.
And so she's like, I do my homework. I caught that guy whose son was exotic animal smuggling. You better hope you don't have anything to hide. And that kind of puts Harper on edge a little bit. We do get a shot of Abby and Riley kind of talking. And in the background, Jane is just dancing alone.
It's awesome. Yeah.
We meet Abby's former high school friends, Kelly and Ashley, as well as Connor. And it's this kind of odd situation where she doesn't even really try to involve Abby. Like, Abby's just kind of there, but she's just around and keeps getting left behind in this party. And Connor pulls Harper aside and is basically like, hey, did you know I was coming to dinner? It seemed like a surprise. And she's like, yeah, it was a surprise. He's like, but I'd love to hang out again. And this is the point where she should have been like, I'm not interested. Like, I'm very flattered, but I'm not interested. But like, if you want to hang out as friends, sure. But like, you know, this is not going to happen. But she doesn't. She's just like, yeah, we should hang out. Like, she's just non-committal. She's manipulating everybody around her.
Then she's such a fucking people pleaser. She refuses, even when there's no benefit to her. They're not friends. She's not interested in him at all. There's no like, it's so strange it doesn't seem like, and we all know these people do exist, but it is tough when this is supposed to be the person that gets the girl. It's like, just refuses to let go of the approval of people who don't matter.
Absolutely. Abby's phone rings and it's Dan Levy's character, John. And he's been tracking her and lets her know that the country club that they're at didn't let women have memberships until the early 2000s.
I thought that was awesome.
So funny.
But this is where he says something that I'm like, this should be the thesis statement for this movie, and the end ruins it. Because what he says is, you deserve someone who will shout your love from the rooftops. And I'm just like, yes, I want that for everybody. I want everybody to have that. I understand that there are challenges and, you know, it might not be easy for that for everyone to have that. But I do feel like that is a great thing to have aspirationally, of like, find someone who loves you for you. Someone who is going to root for you and publicly claim you and is proud to love you. Like, that is what you should want. Whoever that person is, you know? She basically is like, did you just call to make me feel bad? Because, like, I feel bad.
Because mission accomplished.
Yeah. No, actually, I'm just loving these fish. And if I had to buy a new one, where would I do that?
Did you guys also think, like, it wasn't even that Mackenzie Davis Harper wasn't just treating her like poorly for girlfriend standards. Yes. She was treating her poorly for like human being standards. Yes. Even if you're just bringing your friend who is just your roommate, to just like blatantly ignore them during a party where they don't know anyone. I'm like, so you're just like not a decent human, even closeted or not. Very strange.
Yeah.
Right, because it's not like Abby's sitting there like super extroverted, like going out being life of the party. Like, okay, my friend's fine. I can go talk to my people.
Yeah. I mean, she abandons her 3 or 4 different times in the next couple minutes, where I'm just like, what are you doing? We also established that Riley is outside and heard the phone call.
Yeah.
And she basically comes over and is like, hey, I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. I was just out here, but I can relate. Abby's kind of like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Relate to what?
I totally know what you're talking about. Bye.
I know we both have the same blazer on right now, but clearly this is not what you think it is.
There are some scenes later in this movie where multiple people are wearing the same clothes in the same scene, and I will point it out.
Oh, exciting. I think Audrey Plaza looks like so gorgeous in this scene too.
She looks great.
Yeah.
Every scene.
We get Victor Garber's speech, which is short and non-committal. And Harper is like trying to hold Abby's hand. So she's almost making her walk this tightrope of like, you're not allowed to be who you are except when I need attention.
It's gross.
It is toxic.
She's a sociopath, Paige.
It's bad.
Super toxic, super, very like, it's very selfish, and she's living in a world where she makes or breaks all of the rules that she's designed and tells no one else what the rules are.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Oh man, this started to remind me of my exes.
But then gets really pissed when they don't abide by the rules that she set up but did not explain.
Right.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
It is terrible. And Sloane is starting to suspect something. So we cut back to the house after the event, and Abby is downstairs in her room, and she gets a sexy text from Harper. So she's trying to sneak up through the house, and she has to like sneak past doorways and stuff. She sneaks past Sloane, but then Harper's mom comes downstairs, so she hides in a literal closet. They put her back in the closet in this movie.
Oh yeah, that's all got to be intentional.
It is, yes, Mikey, yes. It is intentional.
I'm putting it all together now.
Welcome to the conversation. Yeah, absolutely, Mikey.
Oh, I was going to say she triggers the Roomba on accident.
I think it was an iRobot, but let's not split hairs.
Wow.
First of all,
iRobot's the company
that makes Roomba. Yeah.
No
So
shit.
eat
Okay.
it, Todd. Eat
All right.
that joke.
So what you're saying is, Mikey, we were both right. Thank you.
Sure. Mikey's still right from earlier about the rectangles.
Thank you,
So
thank
she explains, I mean, the mom obviously hears the Roomba and opens the closet, and she explains that she's been sleepwalking. And then her mom says, oh yeah, I took too many Ambien one time and bought a racehorse online. So she gets back down to her bedroom, and Harper is waiting because she snuck down there. And they end up kind of hooking up that night, but they fall asleep.
Paige, I'm so sorry. When you said that the mom said she once took Ambien and bought a racehorse
online.
I
Yes.
Googled the words buy racehorse online, and there is a website, racehorsetrader.com, and you can buy them.
So expensive. I think it's more just to demonstrate like how crazy rich their family is that you could take too many Ambien and buy a racehorse and just be like, it's a funny story.
Showing off their money.
Yeah.
That they can afford more than one Ambien.
So now they've got a problem because Harper's still downstairs. The mom is knocking on the door, and they had blocked the door. So Harper hides behind the door, and they move the block, and she basically is like, oh, I didn't want to sleepwalk again. But through the crack of the open door and the wall, the twins can see Harper. And they don't say anything yet. But now that things are changing about the party, mom is like down there getting supplies and finding the Game Boy and just won't leave. Finally, they leave so Harper can get away. But we go upstairs. We find out that Sloane's been making cookies all day, and her husband's going to go talk to a local potpourri vendor who I think, as we find out later, he's cheating on her. I think he was just cheating on her. I don't think there's any potpourri vendor.
No. Is that a thing? Do potpourri vendors exist?
They do. The first few
God.
years I worked at Sur La Table, we still carried loose potpourri, which was the fucking worst. We just had like a giant bowl of potpourri, and you would just scoop it into bags for people.
If that was me and I worked there, I would have only been doing the bit from Love Actually where Mr. Bean's putting the shit
where
into the
he's
gift bag. That's all I would have been doing all day. You would have had to have fired me, Paige.
But the kids want to see Santa. The twins want to see Santa.
I love this because the mom's like, this may be the last year they get to see Santa. And they're like, is Santa dying? Wait, are we dying?
Yeah. I think her mom I think this is a not very well constructed joke about the war on Christmas.
Oh, I thought it was because they were aging out of believing in Christmas.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
It could be that. The joke is unclear. Like, I read their parents as kind of pseudo-Republican, and so I read it as, like, next year they're not even going to let us have a Santa. It'll just be menorahs and orgies. And, like, but we don't get a clear joke about
Honestly,
it.
that sounds pretty great to me.
So what ends up happening is because Sloane needs a white elephant gift, so does Abby. They have to go to the mall, so they take the twins. Immediately upon getting to the mall, Sloane dumps the twins with Abby.
Yes.
As they're looking through a pretty fancy store, one of the twins puts a necklace into Abby's bag. She sees the personal assistant from the night before in the store and tries to say hi. And it's bonkers how no one in this movie makes any effort to be nice or get to know her at all. And is just like, everyone in this movie that encounters Abby cannot wait to stop talking to Abby. And it is bonkers.
It's great. It doesn't make sense.
It's wild. But so she goes to kind of walk out of the store and gets tackled because the sensor on the necklace goes off. So now she's stuck being like good cop, bad cop by mall security. She gets back to the house.
Oh, wait. Can we talk about that scene, though? Because the good cop, bad cop, the mall security people are two of my favorite like bit part people. Do you recognize them?
It's Lauren Lapkus, and then...
Yeah, Lauren Lapkus, and he's in Veep, and forgive me for not knowing his name, but he is so funny in Veep. He, like, everyone's just shitting on him the whole time, and he's just, like, socially unaware. He's great. I can't remember his name. Oh, Timothy Simmons. Yeah. He's so great.
I didn't know his name. I did recognize him, though.
Honestly, swear to God, I think they're probably just, like, ad-libbing their lines. Like the whole like, oh, did it get legs? Oh, you know what? I didn't check it for legs. Maybe we should check it for legs. Like, I thought that shit was so just funny. I thought it was funny. I like them both a lot.
Very funny. I also liked that they were like, there's no cruffins left in the break room. And I was like, is that a croissant muffin? Like, what's a cruffin?
Paige, I need you to make one and mail it to me.
Okay, you can't really mail croissants well. They don't hold up.
That just sounds to me like someone who doesn't want to try.
Not with that attitude, yeah.
Thank you, Mikey.
If Christopher Columbus had that attitude, he would have discovered America after all those other people did.
He maybe wouldn't have killed a ton of people either, Mikey, so maybe that'd be good.
I honestly thought Mikey was going to say Home Alone would never have been made.
What? Oh, because Chris Columbus made it. He also made Gremlins.
He's the better Chris Columbus, and he's the one I like to celebrate on that day.
That works.
Thank you.
So... she gets home and everyone's mad at her because they think that she's a shoplifter. And so now she doesn't get to go to dinner. And they basically are just now excluding her from family stuff because they don't want the stain of her being a shoplifter on them.
Okay, realistically, they should have just been like, we need you to leave since you committed shoplifting. Or at least talked about it. Like, the whole thing is bizarre.
Yeah, no one will hear her side of the story and no one will talk about it. And I feel like if people had listened to her for like 10 seconds, we would have found out that the twins did it and it was all a misunderstanding. But nobody stops to listen to her. So she goes and gets dinner by herself. And at this point in my notes, I just have, this is lonelier than the Christmas she could have had at home by herself.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Literally.
But she runs into Riley.
Thank God.
She tells her basically that she needs the white elephant party gift and she doesn't know about it, and Riley does, and so she's going to help her out.
We finally have some humanity.
And
this is the most romantic part of the movie, I think.
Absolutely. They have chemistry. They're actually talking to each other. I feel like this is the only time I remember like Abby actually speaking and being listened to.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And having her needs matter at all.
Hello.
Yeah.
I think,
and we have 2 queer people in one scene finally, not over a phone call.
We have 4 queer people in the next scene.
Oh yeah.
And the very next one, we've got at least 4. But so she asks, like, is there any place I could drink? And Riley takes her to a drag bar, which I think for me was Riley being like, I know, and I know you'll be more comfortable here. So let's just go here. We don't have to worry about the straights and their boring bars. Where we are treated to a drag show by Benda La Creme and Jinx Monsoon.
I love both of them so much.
But in this movie, their characters are named MK Ultra and Mistletoe.
Wait, really? That's awesome. I didn't realize they weren't just going by their regular names.
I don't know. Well, because I had captions on. The first time it popped up of like MEK Ultra and then Miss L Toe. And I was just like,
those are such good names.
Good. I was like, I understand Mistletoe. That's a Christmas drag name. MK Ultra?
Oh my God.
Why are we bringing that into this?
I love this scene. I mean, not when they force the 2 to sing along, because that was tough to watch because they didn't go for it or not go for it. There was like a half like, I'm going to sing along with this drag queen, but I know I'm bad, but I'm uncomfortable. That was like hard. I'm like, just do it poorly, loudly, like we all fucking do. But the whole scene, in this bar. It's like in Pittsburgh, and it reminded me of so many, like, Paige and I live in LA, and the gay bars out here are all kind of like a scene. It's like a thing. You're at the Abbey. There's a ton of people. It's very like clubby. But in other cities, like where I'm from in Minnesota and like Pittsburgh, they have like dive gay bars, and they are so beautiful. Having like a shitty little gay bar that is like small, and they have like $2 well drinks with like a small drag show. And I was like, that brings me to a nice place.
This is where we get the conversation between Riley and Abby about what happened to Riley.
This story comes out of nowhere and punches you just in the gut.
Yes.
Like, I think I'm with you. It's like they go out of their way to make Harper evil.
Yes.
Like they did not need to include this story. They just been like, we had a weird breakup in high school. Instead of like, this person is the villain of my whole life.
She Regina Georges her like Regina George did to Janice Ian in Mean Girls, which we don't
100%.
see in Mean Girls, but we hear about it.
She legit explains what I think would be in another movie, like a supervillain origin story. And Abby handles it. And listen, I know it's been years since then, and there's probably therapy involved, and she's just grown as a human. But man, she handles this so well because she's describing like this horrific event.
It ruined her life at the time.
Yes.
And it's like public humiliation and betrayal by the person that you're in love with in high school, which is like, whenever you're in love in high school, it's times like a billion.
Yes.
Your hormones are like, help, you know, and it is, I would say though, maybe the most well acted scene in the movie.
Yeah.
And the most like heart-wrenching, obviously, for what happened. I mean, she gets totally betrayed by the person that she was very much trusting and in love with. That's where I'm like, this is Clea Duvall writing from like a very queer experience. And we're seeing it be unfold, and I'm like, wow, we're like really, I feel like this is exposing, you know, a lot of maybe straight people who have not thought about the like closeted experience to this kind of world of like, wow, that would be very tragic. And it's hard that it's like the person who does this, like, you know, tragedy is the person we're rooting for. Or, you know, it's
supposed to. Yeah.
I mean, she's half of the couple we're rooting for, sure.
Well, and then you could just tell how well-adjusted Riley is because she doesn't hold resentment or anger or anything. Like, and she's ready to forgive her she wants to forgive her face to face because, and that's such a major concept that's so hard for people to understand across the spectrum of life. Like, forgiveness is so hard for anyone about way tinier events.
Well, and for those of you who haven't seen the movie, essentially what we find out is that Riley and Harper were best friends all through childhood, and when they get to high school, they end up dating secretly, and somebody finds them out, and to save her own skin, Harper throws Riley under the bus, and basically is like, I'm straight, she's gay, and she's obsessed with me. And it's so common of an experience, which I think is why it's so painful.
It is. And this almost exact situation happened to me when I was in high school, in love with my best friend.
Oh my God.
Had the same best friends, had letters found in my locker, love letters. I mean, like, this is so common in our community. So then it's like, part of you is like, is this the story that has to be told? Is this the truest part that we can? Because then it's like, I feel like a lot of time, you know, queer stories are only really, they're either very over sexualized, or it is like this tragedy. We see like queer people get beat up a lot in movies and killed, and a lot of tragedy with this. And I'm like, at least we're not getting, you know, beaten in this movie, but it is like,
we're getting emotionally beaten.
Why do we have it is tough to be like, oh, the worst part. I'm like, so now this is what we're uncovering. It's like, oh, it is tough.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is one of the reasons that Schitt's Creek is like praised, because it shows an aspect of just a queer couple falling in love without any of that tragedy or things of that nature, right?
Yeah, I review movies weekly on my podcast, and we do a lot of, there's like different bars, and it's like, if a couple can be out and the coming out process isn't a part of the movie, we like, that's such a small percentage of the movies. And that's when you get, but this is where now there's this new phenomenon happening in the last like 5-ish years of movie and television, where queer stories are a lot more frequent, but they are almost specifically for straight people to be kind of educated. So it is like, it is the whole narrative of like, hopefully, parents in the Midwest watch this movie and then they feel more comfortable with their daughter bringing home their girlfriend to Christmas, or hopefully a dad somewhere or like a kid struggling in Indiana thinks to himself, it wouldn't be so bad because this happened to Aubrey Plaza. And it is like, we get queer stories kind of straight washed into a package that is like easily digestible for the straight middle America to be now more comfortable with queer people. But it's not necessarily for the queer people to consume, because it is either tragedy for us or kind of tired. So
Dolly Parton said it was okay.
Not to go on like this super long tangent, but I sort of feel like that's what this movie is.
Absolutely. Yeah. This movie is a queer story packaged nicely for straight people to learn a lesson and feel good about themselves, which honestly it does. And that movie isn't for lesbians, but it was, if you like this movie, I don't think you're wrong. And this movie does serve a purpose.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I think it could have been a lot funnier, but it does serve a very beautiful purpose. The only thing is, if we had a lot more lesbian stories and a lot more lesbian movies, then it would be like, perfect. There's this place for it. Here's like the Veggie Tale cookie cutter, nice bow on it for middle America. Here's the raunchy. They get like fucked in a bathroom and then they laugh about it. And then here's the comedy. Here's the horror. But because there's so few, that the one movie that we get has to do all of it. And then therefore you kind of lose a lot of depth of the queer experience.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you think it serves a purpose, because I feel like until people are exposed to it, either on a personal level, because like Mikey had the experience of his brother coming out. And
that's what I was just thinking of. Well, I mean, it's like, my mom is still learning a lot, and I think films and art like this helps her.
I have a sister who's 10 years younger than me, and she came out when she was in high school. So I was in my like mid-ish 20s when she came out, and I wasn't like anti-gay marriage or anything like that, or I didn't like hate gay people or anything. I just didn't think about it. It just was not a part of my life. And then her coming out, like I immediately overnight, because that impacted my family and I'm just this white privileged idiot, I just immediately overnight was like, oh, that's something I need to care about now. Does that make sense?
Right.
And I feel like
Absolutely.
there are a lot of people who haven't and aren't going to have that experience just because they're not going to have that in their family.
Right.
And I feel like this can sort of open the door for that conversation, or just like sort of internal dialogue that Mikey and I'm assuming you did, Mikey, sort of went through very quickly when our family members came out.
It is like, that's where these movies are important, not just for exposure for straight people to be like, oh wow, they're making movies about a thing that could happen, so maybe I don't know anyone, but here are some people that now I'm seeing that like this movie is very mainstream accessible. It's on Hulu. A lot of this isn't like a niche queer movie. This is a mainstream movie.
Right.
Yes.
So this is like exposure, but also like, yes, good for straight people who don't know any gay people, but even like think about the young closeted people, the like really young kids who now are seeing mainstream actors being in a queer storyline, so that it serves purposes for a lot of people, straight people, young queer people who've never met a gay person. There's like a lot of boxes that's checking for showing on a mainstream platform just people that are not straight, which is huge.
Yeah.
But like a lot of times that I'm like so glad that it serves that purpose. But it is so funny that it is like this lesbian movie. So, my parents are asking me what I think about it. My friends are asking me. I'm assumed that I have to watch it and have like, and I do. It is my job to have an opinion on it. But, it is.
Well, and you're asked to be on podcasts about it.
Exactly. But it is the only thing that like we get, so it is so hard when it's like, I don't want every single movie that is a lesbian mainstream movie to have to be this thing for so many people.
Right.
Because it has to like do all of this work, where if we had so many more, then it would be like, can I get just one that makes lesbians laugh? Can I get one that makes lesbians feel like that's how I fall in love? But instead it is kind of like, well, we don't see them fall in love. But now it is like the same thing whenever you have like kind of minority groups getting a thing that is finally seen by the mainstream of the group, then it's held to the standard of like, well, it has to fucking speak for now every lesbian experience, and it is impossible to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wish that because it has this larger purpose of a movie, because of the budget, because of the cast, because of the platform, I really, really, really could have done without the needing to come out aspect of it. If it was just straight down the middle, it's a big ensemble, it's a big cast, it's a big budget, and a lesbian couple is meeting the parents, and the kerfuffles are like, the dad's so weird, and like, you have to be on your A game, and like, is she an orphan? Like, those jokes all still play. If you take out this like trauma of like needing to be closeted, or there was just a way that I was like, that didn't need to be there, and we could have still had all of these great things about the movie.
Yeah.
I think compounded on that, I think it was marketed as more of that.
Yeah, totally. It was marketed as a lesbian Christmas rom-com. Honestly, not enough Christmas, in my opinion.
Agreed.
I need a lot more Christmas in my Christmas rom-com. But
Yeah, we probably should get back into the movie. Sorry,
back to
Paige.
the movie.
Yeah.
There's drag show. They're having a good time. They're having this great conversation. And essentially, Abby gets a text that Harper is now out of her family obligations and she and her friends are hanging out. So she goes to meet them, and it's just a boring straight bar, and she just immediately gets left behind.
Yeah.
Like,
Not only is it a boring straight bar, it has the name Fratties.
yeah, it's fratties. But she just leaves her at the bar. Like, she doesn't care
terrible.
if she's included. She doesn't care if she feels included.
And it implies that she knows she's making her feel that way because she's like, you're having a terrible time, I know.
Yeah. Well, and she's also flirting with Connor.
Right?
Like, hand on his chest. Like, she's touching him.
For no
Yeah.
reason.
No.
Yeah.
So Abby decides to go home. So she goes home, and Harper tells her, text me when you get home. She does. And we see on her phone that she's texted her 3 or 4 times with no response.
Yeah. So much so that she just texts good night.
Just so infuriating.
Yeah.
That infuriates
I
me.
mean, are you kidding me? You can't text your girlfriend who's pretending to be straight for you, and you stay out with your ex-boyfriend, and you can't even say good night, I made it home? Unforgivable. You're a serpent.
Yeah. Well, and even just like when she says, I made it home, just like, hey, great, we're staying out a little bit later. Like, that's all she needed was information.
Yeah. And also, she is sort of leading Connor on, I think, in this
Yeah.
outing. We don't really see that. But she is, to your point, Paige, flirting with Connor. And Connor is clearly hung up on her. And
Yep.
if he knew the truth, I feel like he would be like, oh, that makes so much sense.
He'd be fucking Ashley, the other girl.
Yeah. Oh, who's way into him. Yeah.
Super into him.
But like, I just feel like she's being so unfair because, as Rachel has been saying, she is a serpent.
Yeah, she's
Thank
a serpent.
you.
Yes.
Well, this is why Connor tries to make a move at the end of the night.
Yeah, we cut back to the bar and they're kind of saying their goodbyes. And he asks her if there was somebody else when they were dating in high school, which we know because we know it was Riley.
Oh, it wasn't Riley, though. Riley happened her
they
freshman
would have broken
year.
up at that point. Yeah, you're right.
And honestly, it may not have been somebody else. It was just that she's into women.
Right.
Like my senior prom date.
Damn.
I honestly
Mikey.
feel like
So we cut to the next day when Abby wakes up and realizes that she has a text from Harper from 2:12 a.m. basically saying that she had just gotten home. So she's been out most of the night.
yeah.
Abby goes to wake her up and is like, I'm just making sure that you're okay because you weren't answering me. And Harper gets real defensive and weird. Just like, you knew I was out. Why are you suffocating me? And it's like, because you've left her in a house with people she doesn't know, in a town she's unfamiliar with, and you're her only connection to any of it. And you just keep abandoning her. Like, of course she's going to keep tabs on you. You're the only person she knows.
It's insanity. It's almost like she's acting like they're in a very bad fight. That like
Yeah.
once again, the rules have changed and
Yeah.
no one knows why or what's the rules are. But now out of nowhere, she's like, God, get this bitch out of my house. It's like, you brought her here.
Yeah. This is also where we get, she basically blames her. She's like, well, you agreed to come.
Oh,
And this is where she's like, if I knew that this was what I was agreeing to, I wouldn't have come. And this is where she's like, well, maybe we need some space. And she's like, you need space. Great. Bye. I'm out. And she goes back downstairs to start packing. Meanwhile, Harper's mom comes in and is like, I've got errands for the party because there's like so many parties in this movie. So Abby goes downstairs. She's packing. She looks up the cost of an Uber. It's like $1,000.
Yeah.
Conveniently, John calls her back. Dan Levy. And this, I actually really like his opening line of this conversation where he's like, hey, I'm sorry. I was judgmental and I should have been more open for you to share so that I can help because I'm your friend and I care about you. What's going on? And she just lays it out for him of like, I was arrested. Harper maybe pretending to also be straight, but like taking it too far with Connor. And I'm trying to leave, but the ride is like $1,000. Do I stick it out or leave? And we cut to Dan Levy, who we reveal is buying fish that he has clearly killed.
I really connect with his character as a friend because usually when people come to me with like a problem, I like want to fix it. So I'm like, that's terrible. Get out of there. Just leave. And then like people get mad. And you have to like come back and be like, I may have not made that a great place. I know, I just want to listen and I'll reflect your feelings. Like I will listen now and do it. And I just related to that a lot because if someone tells me a thing that's like really bad, I'll just be like, what the fuck are you thinking? You've got to get out now.
Well, and he, to his credit, is like, I need to think about this.
Yeah. So he was trying hard not to do it again, but he couldn't do it. So he's like, I'm just going to disconnect from this phone call.
Yeah.
We then get Abby texting Riley because she still needs a white elephant gift because she's basically not going to leave at this point.
Harper
This is the point in the movie where she should have went and had sex with Riley.
Yeah. And we get Harper apologizing via text, but it's a half apology. And it's like, after we do the Christmas stuff, please be nice for Christmas stuff. So she and Riley go out and get gifts. They're walking around and Harper sees her from one of the stores that she's out running errands at and freaks out. And I think it's just because it's like, oh, I'm not controlling her, I think is what it was. Where it's like she is connected with somebody outside of my control and she's not just sitting at home waiting for me. I don't know what to do.
And also, Riley can give her something that Mackenzie Davis can't, and that is a open, loving, publicly supportive relationship. And I feel like to Mackenzie Davis, that's super threatening because that's what everybody wants.
Yeah.
And also, she knows what happened in high school.
Yeah.
So she thinks she's going to tell her what I did to that woman in high school, which is terrible.
She's going to tell her how I destroyed her life.
And imagine your current girlfriend just walking down the street with your ex-closeted girlfriend. You'd be like,
oh no. Yeah. We cut back to the house where Harper's mom's setting out cookies. This is where she basically implies that she thinks Abby stole her brooch. And it's just like, well, if it just shows up, I won't ask questions. She tries to explain what happened with the necklace at the mall. No one listens to her. This is where everyone starts bringing in their white elephant gifts, and Jane brings in her painting, which is conservatively 4 feet by 5 feet. Like, it's a massive painting, and she's just like carrying it in and it's wrapped, and they make her go fix the printer. And Harper kind of confronts her of like, oh, what'd you do today? Get a white elephant gift in town? How'd you get there? Like, she's trying to get her to admit that she was out with Riley.
She wants a fight.
Yeah.
I've been in a relationship with someone like that.
Yeah.
Who, when they feel like they're starting to lose control, they want to fight so then they can be the victim and turn it around on you. It was very toxic, and I'm so glad she cheated on me.
There you go.
But this is also where we get another introduction of the girls from the dad, where he's like, this is Sloane. She was gonna be partner, but she started a family. This is Harper, our powerhouse, and this is Jane. She has a way with routers. Like,
this man has 3 awesome daughters. He has someone who started their own very successful whatever business. That's not easy. That's awesome. They have a sociopath. Well, that one's not great. But then they have the daughter who's like an IT wizard and fantasy writer genius.
yeah,
I hate this man.
it's wild. The twins have a song, which is unnecessary and pads out the runtime of this film.
And sung poorly.
This is the time to check your phone.
It is.
This next party is actually where we have 3 different people wearing the same dress in different colors. And I know this because I also own this dress in a color that is not featured in this film.
Wow.
So that means there are at least 4 different colors of this dress.
Yeah, there's like 5 different colors of this dress, give or take. It's made by Vixen by Micheline Pitt in Burbank. And it looks great on everyone. This is where we get Jane trying to talk about her book to somebody who's actively trying to avoid her. And it is wild.
Yeah.
Riley and Abby are hanging out at the party because Harper is chatting up the donor who is also at the party. She's basically with her dad. She's abandoned Abby again. And then Connor shows up she's then flirting with Connor again. And so this basically starts a real fight between them.
Yeah.
Essentially, she's telling Riley, like, I feel terrible. Like, I feel like I don't know this person at all. And I was supposed to be proposing, you know?
And Riley's like, I propose we get out of here.
Yeah.
Should have.
But Dan Levy shows up because he's been tracking her the whole time. And they play it off as if he's her ex-boyfriend that she mentioned earlier in the movie, here to get her back. And he has to pretend to be straight. And after he finishes, he says, I nailed that, and she is fabulous. It was great.
He's so
funny.
I love this man.
And he's there to rescue her.
Yeah.
So he's like, get your stuff. Let's go. And she literally turns to Harper and just says, Harper, it's over. I'm done. Which is the coldest breakup ever.
I loved it.
Deserved. And Harper doesn't even react. She just kind of like turns and is like, oh.
I mean, I think she's sort of blindsided by it. And then she puts a drink down and follows after her. But like,
Yeah.
She's a serpent.
Absolute serpent.
Yeah, absolute serpent. So they go.
A Christmas serpent.
A Christmas serpent. They go downstairs and they're going to literally fight it out at this point. Cage match in the bedroom. This is where she's like, you're hiding me. And she's like, I'm not hiding you. I'm hiding me. Which is a very real and sad thing to say, but also she's been treating her terribly this entire film. So like, doesn't get a pass.
Yeah, just because one is right does not mean the other is not horrible, right?
Right. This is also where we get the first kind of thesis statement about love in their family, where it was a competition, and if you're on your A game, your parents didn't care about you, which is fucked up. Like, she should go to therapy for that. But like, that's not Abby's problem. Like, she should still also be actively working to be in a communicative, inclusive relationship with her girlfriend. And so it looks like they're going to make up after this fight, which I'm just like, no. But Sloane walks in on them.
Yeah.
We cut back to the party where Connor and Dan Levy are talking weights.
Hey, Mikey, how much do you bench?
Oh, I bench 1,000 pounds,
like a little over 1,000.
It was 1,000 is nuts. Like, is...
Well, it's like, he doesn't say, do you lift? He says, do you pump? And he's like, what?
What?
And then, okay, so I think it cuts back to the girls fighting again and then back to Dan Levy.
Yeah,
and
he's feeling his muscle.
He's feeling his arm. I love that so much. He's like, oh, yeah, that's some good mass or whatever he says. I think it's funny that when Dan Levy is trying to pass himself off as like a manly straight man, he says the exact same things I do when I'm trying to pass myself off as a manly straight man.
I mean, this is between you and your inner demons, Todd, but I think maybe you should ask some questions.
They're not demons, baby. Sexuality is a spectrum, and I'm on it somewhere.
This is true.
This is accurate. So we cut back down to where the girls are fighting, and Sloane is fully going to use this to her advantage to try and gain favor with their dad. That's how toxic this family is.
Yeah.
So they run upstairs. They're basically fighting through the hallway, and as they do, they bump through a door, revealing that her husband, Sloane's husband, is cheating with the personal assistant of the donor. And she says no one is supposed to know yet, which means that she knows and is just like, we're waiting till after Christmas. And in my notes, I just have, these people need fucking counseling because like the whole family messed up.
Because they're not verbally fighting in the hall. They're physically fighting and like hitting each other with like sticks and stuff. It's terrible.
We cut back to the White Elephant Exchange where the donor has picked the painting and they open it and it's actually a really cool painting.
It's so good.
It's really pretty. I sobbed. Well, I cry later with the painting, but I was like, oh my God, it's great. And then Dan Levy is just like, I love that. And then like straightens back up. It's really funny. So they fight their way into the party.
Yeah.
And Sloane is about to out her and they're like literally throwing stuff at each other. And then Sloane outs her anyway. Yeah. And there's a beat where Harper has a choice as to what she's going to do. Either own up to it or basically throw Abby under the bus. And she throws Abby under the bus. She just denies it and is like, nope.
This is heartbreaking, and I just want to take a second to point out that this is shot beautifully. Whoever set this up does a great job because Mackenzie Davis is looking at her parents, and then Abby is right behind them at the door. And then you can see how it crushes Abby, and then she just walks out.
She just walks out.
Yeah.
And the fight continues where Harper picks up the painting that Jane painted and breaks it over Sloane's head. And this is where Jane finally gets to stand up for herself. But this is where I cried over the painting.
Yeah.
Because Jane is like, I spent time on that.
100 hours.
100 hours, and it's good and it's worth something, and I'm worth something, and I'm tired of all of you treating me like I don't. And I love it. They then fight their way through the Christmas tree. The kids are hiding behind it. Abby is outside. John joins her outside, and they go for a walk. And this is where we find out that like her parents were Christmas people, which like it's a particular kind of person that is a Christmas person that does all the Christmas things. But they were. And after they died, she didn't really get to do it because it reminded her of them, which made me sob uncontrollably. Then she basically is like, I thought coming here would be fun and it might help, but no. And I don't think she loves me as much as I thought she did. And then Dan Levy says something amazing where he's like, her not coming out is not an indication of feelings for you. It is a separate issue.
Yeah, it's not a reflection of you.
What's a reflection of her feelings for you is the fact that she didn't give you the opportunity to approach this from a place of communicative knowledge. Like, you didn't know ahead of time. She threw you under the bus. That's a reason to break up with her. But he basically is like, not everyone can come out and come out safely. And not everyone has the same coming out story. And it's scary. And that moment is challenging, and she's not ready, but that doesn't mean she won't be or that she doesn't love you.
It's a beautiful monologue he says in this scene.
This is where I started crying, and I didn't stop until the end.
Right. Well, and I love what Kristen Stewart says back, where she just says, I want to be with someone who is ready.
Yeah.
Which is the flip side of you should be with somebody who wants to shout their love from the mountains. Like, you should be with someone proud to be with you, or who at least respects you enough to respect how this whole scenario would make you feel and to not want to inflict that kind of pain on you.
Yeah, like Riley.
Yeah, exactly. So Riley and Harper talk, and Harper apologizes to her. Anna Gasteyer, the donor, is like, I'll call you, bye. And this is where they get a lecture from their dad. And this is where Harper finally does come out, where she's like, Sloane wasn't lying. I'm gay. I'm in love with Abby. I'm sorry I didn't tell you, but I was worried about jeopardizing your lives, and I've let myself hurt people because I was scared of you, and I still regret it, and I can't do that to Abby. And I'm like, too late. You did it.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and that's what Abby says. That's what Kristen Stewart says.
Yeah. And this is also where we find out that Sloane and Eric are getting a divorce. And Jane just says, I don't have any secrets, but I am an ally, which is one of my favorite lines in the movie.
I know.
That's why
She was
Jane
amazing.
is the best character in this movie. She's balls to the wall bonkers, and I love it. Abby decides that she's going to leave. And at this point, I have in my notes, I was like, did Harper come out to try and save things with Abby? Because if she did, it's too late. Like, she kind of deserves to be broken up with over this because she treated her horribly. I feel like this is the movie trying to redeem her character a little bit.
Yeah, and maybe that's why it felt a bit off to me, because it just doesn't feel right.
Well, and I think the movie thinks that the problem is that she wasn't out, but the problem is that she's treating Abby badly. Like, out or not,
Yes.
she's treating Abby with disrespect in their relationship. That is the problem. So Abby leaves. And we see Victor Garber, the dad, in his office, and the mom comes in, and she just says, I've always wanted to try karate, and I hate flowers. And I just have in my notes, same ho. That sounds great. You do you. But then she basically is like, we created an environment where our daughters didn't feel like they could tell us what was going on.
Yeah.
And then she says, the only reason Jane turned out normal is because we gave up on her after she wouldn't stop biting in preschool. And I'm like, first of all, Jane ain't normal.
Jane's not normal, but don't make her normal. She's perfect the way she is.
I think she's
She is
more
great.
emotionally well adjusted.
I would say
Yeah,
that.
sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. We do get like a sister bonding moment in the living room, but then their mom comes out and just says, Dad needs a little time, which is brutal. Because I'm just like, you want him to immediately be like, of course it's our daughters. I care about them no matter what. And for him to be like, yeah, we'll see. I was just like, oh, I know that happens, but that's so rough.
Yeah. That's every dad basically is like, I'm going to need about 5 to 6 years to get back to, if it is like, honestly, the mom is usually like, I think this is okay, and the dad's like, I'm gonna need a coffee. I don't know.
I wasn't there when my sister came out. The way I found out my sister came out was her dad, who was my ex-stepfather, because my family's a nightmare situation of remarriages, called me and said to me, you need to tell your sister to not be gay.
Ugh,
So
yeah.
I can only imagine what my sister had to deal with, right? Because she was still living in his house in high school. I just feel so bad for what my sister had to go through. So, like, some people don't take it well.
Yeah, dads are so tough.
My mom was like, yes, I got a gay one. Like, she was so happy about it. My mom could not have been the bigger mirror image of that, right?
My brother came out to me first and then my mom at the beach when we were on vacation.
And he was like, Mom, I'm almost 30 and I'm very fit. Clearly, I'm gay.
Well, I mean, I was basically like, you post a lot of pictures during Pride and your nipples are pierced. I have figured this out like 20 years ago. and then, you know, we had a great trip and it was a good experience. I think it was a good experience. I mean, he seems happier overall since coming out. Thank God. And I'm really happy for him. But then he posted about coming out on Facebook at the airport to fly away. Now, here's the thing. He only came out to me and my mom, then posted about it on Facebook, and that's how all of our extended family found out, and my dad, and our dad. So it was pretty hilarious.
I feel like when it comes to these coming out stories, I'm always like, I know these stories need to be told, and if we normalize this process, then we can have more people have less of that I need a minute time and more, and cut to the accept it more quickly. But then I always wonder if straight people watching this, or like the older generation of straight people watching this, are thinking to themselves, wow, these parents are so good that they love their kids even though they're so disgusting and bad for being gay. Do you know what I mean? Because
Yes,
kind
sadly,
of
I
the
do.
message is that they're like, aren't those parents so brave that even though they have like these horrible, like, basically, you know, they're making it's as bad as a divorce, it's as bad as being an alcoholic, and those parents are so brave that they love them even though they're super gross and gay. And it's like, ooh, that is sometimes the takeaway.
Well, and I feel like that's what this part of the movie serves to do, where it's like, I'm going to need a minute, is for the older people watching this who are like, what would I do? I need 2 to 3 minutes to think about it. And that's what happens.
And those 2 to 3 minutes will stick with a gay person for a really long time into like their adulthood.
Yeah.
I think my favorite part of my brother's coming out was when my mom would just ask a ton of follow-up questions. And then Kevin was like, Michael, answer it. You're like a person who knows about stuff. And I was like, I can't answer your coming out questions. Because my mom, of course, is like, what about Elaine? Weren't you guys together? And he's like, Michael, will you explain this? And I was like, it's a spectrum.
Mikey, this is when you use that line you used on me last week where I can't speak your truth.
Right. It's a real bonding moment. Our family's been, I would say, close. We've always been close, but closer since then. So it's fun to talk about now. And it was fun to talk about then because it was hilarious because I was kind of drunk.
So, John, Dan Levy, and Kristen Stewart are driving away. They've stopped at a gas station, and Harper drives up because she's been tracking her like a fucking stalker. And she gives her this whole speech of like, I was terrible. I won't hurt you again. Give me another chance. And I'm just like, why? Like, we already know you've done this to one person before. You've been nothing but terrible to her. Why should I believe that this is going to be different other than the fact that I cannot take that ring back? And
that's terrible.
She then is just like, I don't care what my parents think. I only care about you. And I'm like, that's a nice thing to say. But we need to have some real conversations about how our interactions are going to work from here on out because of what I've just experienced this past week.
Yeah.
But the movie doesn't think about that. And so they kiss and they're back together. And we cut to the next Christmas morning where everyone is there and happy except for Dad, who hasn't come down to Christmas that morning. The kids admit to putting the necklace in Abby's bag.
Yeah.
Dad comes down to Christmas and he admits that like the thing he was hiding is that he had sunk their entire savings into his campaign because he wanted them to be proud of him, which is like, that's a way bigger revelation that we should address. How are they going to afford the drunk racehorses? What's going to happen?
Wait, why are the racehorses drunk?
Then we get my favorite line from Jane in the entire movie, which is, when I sell my book, I'll take care of all of us. Don't worry. And we've just heard snippets of this book. So we're just like, the weird book? Like, what is she talking about?
Oh, no, I knew that when she said that was 100% going to happen, because from what I heard of her book, it's going to be a banger.
So we get an instrumental version of Oh Holy Night, because it was probably in the public domain. And they finally take family photos, but everyone gets to be in it.
Well, except for Dan Levy, because
Except for Dan Levy.
actually not in the family. Yeah.
True. We get a call from the donor and she's just like, got to keep that gay shit on the down low. And then he's like, I don't think we can be in business, but we don't see it. It's off camera. So we find out later that it didn't work out. Then 1 year later, we cut to the book comes out and they've got the ring. So they are getting married. So Dan Levy is, I assume, her publisher. For the book.
I think he's like a book agent, right?
He's probably not her publisher, but he probably got her published.
Yeah, a literary agent, most likely is what he is. And then they all go to the movies all together.
They go to see It's a Wonderful Life.
Which I don't really like that movie.
I love that movie, and we cannot.
Oh, I'll fight you about that movie. Anyway, that's the movie.
Although, Paige, I'll say this. Natalie and I used to go see It's a Wonderful Life at the Old Franklin Theater here every Christmas Eve. We're not doing it this year for obvious reasons.
Oh, my God. All two of them.
That's one of our traditions, Mikey. We've done it 2 years.
I just can't.
So, okay. Having seen the movie, having talked about the movie, let's get some final thoughts. What do you guys think?
I appreciate it. I'm glad people funneled money into a story that did not have heteronormative characters. I hope for better in the future.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
It served its purpose, but I think it was, if we could take out the like tragedy of it all, the moments that were just like, so it's really hard watching someone be closeted for that long and it being this process. It was like surprisingly traumatic as a queer person.
Yeah.
But it does serve its purpose. And I mean, if it was, I think all of us, specifically the queer community, know that she should have ended up with Riley is the only way to save the movie, I think.
Yeah.
Because then Harper learns the lesson that like you can't treat people like that. And, you know, Abby gets the love that she deserves from Riley. And then Riley gets justified by like fucking the girl that fucked her over. I mean, it is the perfect ending.
Yeah.
If we rewrote that and reshot it and put it out there, then I think this movie would have been nice. A little funnier, could have used some more diverse casting, but other than that, I don't know. I'd give it like out of 5 stars, probably 2.5, 3, maybe.
I think that's fair. I think a better ending would be if you start at the moment where Sloane sees them sort of kissing, or that in that intimate moment, Sloane doesn't sell her out. Like we see that Sloane actually is a like person that has a like developed character. I honestly don't need Riley and Kristen Stewart to end up together, but I don't think Mackenzie Davis and Kristen Stewart should be together.
Yeah.
You could change that 1 year later thing and make the whole movie much better by changing like that last 30 seconds.
Absolutely.
In my mind. I am very firmly Team Riley because I love Aubrey Plaza.
And she's
but I don't think they
this.
need to be
She
together for that to pay off for me.
They could all just be friends.
Yes.
Yeah. Aubrey Plaza is great in this. And she's somebody who usually plays a really comedically forward role. And she's the straight man in this. And she's phenomenal in it. Where it makes me want to just like put her in everything. Like she's so good in it. But yeah, I hope for better. Now that I feel like this did really well, that justifies us making a lot more.
Yeah, it like broke Hulu. Like it broke all these Hulu records because lesbians will show up.
Real.
I would like
For my Christmas comedy, I like a lot less depression.
Yeah.
And so I would like a Christmas Vacation where there's like the main characters are like gay or lesbian and just have it, and like no one, that's not their defining characteristic. They're just trying to do a perfect Christmas and everything's going wrong.
Yeah.
And it's a comedy. That's what I want
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was
Agreed.
expecting.
We
Yeah.
were bait and switched a little bit.
A little bit. So there are not a lot of fun facts for this movie.
I was about to ask you if you had some fun facts for us, Paige.
No, because it literally just came out. So unfortunately, not much.
Well, Audrey Plaza tweeted that she thought that they should end up together as well.
She's right.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if it's like a Pretty in Pink thing where we'll get another version of this movie where they do end up together in like 3 to 5 years.
I'd watch
I
that.
would fucking watch the shit out of that.
So just like you, Paige, I don't have a lot for box office. I do know the budget. Well, I know an unconfirmed budget, if you guys are interested in that.
I am.
The budget for this was $17 million, although I will say again, it was unconfirmed. But that makes sense to me. It's not a super small budget. It's not like a Hallmark budget. And the movie does have some big name people in it, and it's good.
Are you guys ready for my favorite question? Are they still together?
Oh no,
Fuck
absolutely not.
no.
No. I would really, really, really like to hope that the next time they go back for Christmas, she hooks up with Riley again, and that's who she is.
Yeah, there's no that type of relationship falls apart after 2 months.
I also don't think they're together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think any of us do. Which is why I think this movie is sad on some level. Like she just recommits at the end of this movie to a relationship that we all think, at least, is gonna fail.
We've all been in a relationship where we're putting in 100% and the other person's giving you 10, and then
Yep.
they say one nice thing, and then you're like, okay, let's double down on it, and that can't sustain.
Right.
Yeah,
No.
absolutely.
All right. So, Rachel, what do you want to plug? Tell us all your stuff. Where can we find you?
Oh, okay. I do a podcast called Two Dykes and a Mic, where we do queer movie reviews, like some kind of like what we did just now.
Yeah.
And several other segments as well. So at TWODYKES and a mic. And I'm also at Rachel Safety. And I have Two Dykes and a Mic special is out. And we also have a queer coloring book just in time for the holidays.
Oh,
Aw.
fantastic.
Well, that's awesome. So, Rachel, thank you so much for joining us and being our awesome lesbian correspondent.
I live to be the gay for pay. I'm here anytime you need a lesbian. I love it. You guys are the best. Paige, just nice to see your fucking face.
I know. I miss you dearly.
I miss you. Thank you so much for having me. You guys are fantastic.
So, Mikey, do you have a review for us to read?
Yeah, I got one.
Awesome. Well, while you're looking it over, let me tell them how they can have their review run on the podcast, and that is to simply leave us a 5-star text review. A little text so Mikey has a little something fun to read, but leave us that 5 stars so we know you want us to read it. Mikey, who's the review from this week?
This review's from SG Barron.
Ooh, the Baron page.
The Baron.
And the title is, if you love movies, you'll love this pod, maybe.
Agree.
It's either pod or podcast. It's ellipses out, but it's fine. You'll know what I'm talking about. They say, this podcast is better than a lawyer, owns a bakery in a small town, and marries Santa kind of Hallmark movie.
That's a very specific type.
Todd Page and the other guy, what's his name? Oh, yeah, Mikey. I love y'all's chemistry. I came over from Harvirgin and I love it.
Nice.
I listen to a lot of movie-related podcasts, and y'all have very quickly climbed to the top of my must-listen podcast
Hell
list.
yeah.
Keep it up, y'all. P.S. I love that y'all are from Tennessee, too. Salutations from Memphis.
Oh,
Nice.
fun.
I do love Memphis.
5 stars.
I've been to Memphis once.
I played a bunch of shows on Beale Street in Memphis.
I went once on a vacation, and as soon as we landed, I found out that one of my friends from high school died in a hiking accident, and then I cried for days until we went to Graceland.
Well, this review got dark.
This is a comedy podcast.
Thank you so much, SG Barron, for that awesome 5-star review from a fellow Tennessee listener. I appreciate that. So this week we watched the Happiest season. Mikey, what are you making us watch next week?
Okay, do you want one that I really like, or do you want one of the most insane romantic movies I've ever seen?
Insane.
Always insane, Mikey.
We will be watching another Robert Pattinson flick
Yes.
Wait,
called
Pattinson?
Remember. Yeah, Patterman.
You said it right. One of those times you said it right.
Sure.
And that movie is Remember Me.
I have
Okay.
heard about this movie, and I am excited.
Never seen this.
I'm going to tell you something. I saw it in theaters, and it has one of the most unique plot twists I've ever seen in my whole entire life.
I'm fucking stoked. Does it
can't
have
wait.
a night? Is time travel real? I'm here for it.
I'm not going to... Don't read anything about... Okay, both of you
I
promise
won't.
me.
I won't. I will stay.
Don't read anything about it.
My brain will remain virginal.
Don't Google it.
Mikey, I've never learned how to read, so you don't have to worry about that.
I'm telling you, the less you know about this, when the things happen, you will understandably just be like, I stood up in a theater and was like, what the fuck?
I swear to God, Mikey, if he walks from a little bit further from Colorado to Louisiana, I'll be very upset if that's the twist.
I am not going to tell you what happens.
I
but
will
it's-
not research it. I'm not going to look. I'm excited just to let it wash over me.
It's just so unexpected and jarring. I'm so excited that you guys get to experience it for the first time.
Well, your homework for next week is to get wine drunk, buckle up your oh shit belts, and watch Remember Me.
I'm so excited about it.
So, yeah, guys, if you like this power throuple that we have here on this podcast, make sure to check out our other podcast, The Horror Virgin, and that is the only other podcast that Mikey and I are on, but Paige gets around, and she is on 2 other podcasts, Black Card Rehab and Cult Podcast. So, guys, definitely check out those because they're amazing. If you want to follow us on social, we are at Romancing the Pod Show.
Yes.
On
Yes.
Instagram, and we are at something else on Twitter who I just have never taken the time to learn it.
It's just Romancing Pod Show because they have a character limit and it's show SHO like Showtime.
So guys, check that out as well. And if you want to follow us all individually, Paige is at Rampage Wesley everywhere, including TikTok, except for Twitter, where she is at Paige Wesley. Mikey is at MRandolph24, and I am at Todd J. Awesome everywhere.
That's going to be it for us, you guys. This has been Romancing the Pod. I'm Paige Wesley.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Todd.
And you complete us.
To completion.
Toodle pip.
You're my heroine.
Laters, babies. Oh my God. Mikey.
La 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 la.